Oh, okay, welcome to the CEFACT Global Trust Registry project. We are recording the meeting. We have the usual code of conduct and IPR rules that we're all familiar with, and we don't over Hans and Alina are very familiar with them. Today's agenda is really going to be focused around the public review. Well, kicked off really sort of 24 hours ago, just 24 hours ago. And we'll talk about that. We've already got some review comments. We can still have a look at those. We can talk about how we're going to handle those review comments and so on. We've also got some other stuff that's of interest, like the pilots for Grid, some other related work with W3C. So there's quite a bit to get through. But the most important thing probably is to start with the pilots. So on the environment that was run by the CEFACT, this environment here, it's called CUE, Collaborative CEFACT Environment. They published that this project is under public review, right? And this is the page they created. It has this list of the deliverables, and it has a Word document template download to fill out, which is just a table, basically. They also posted on LinkedIn that this was open for public review. I think, and Alina may know more than I do about this, that there's no other announcement. They don't have an email list or anything. They just do this. Is that right, Alina? Is that as far as you understand what they did?
Yes, I think so. I saw it the other day on LinkedIn.
So I guess the logic is inside this CUE, this collaborative CEFACT environment, are the world's experts, or those that were interested enough to say that they were an expert on trade and documentation standards. And therefore, they're sort of, I suppose, reaching out to those that are already self-declared as interested in experts. So maybe that's their logic. But anyway, so the public review is a LinkedIn post and a queue announcement. And that seems to be the sum total. I've reposted the fact that we're doing public review now on LinkedIn, and I would encourage everybody else to do so too if you want to get more people in. But we genuinely want people to have a chance to have a look at this during this public review. I think that's sort of obvious, I hope, for everybody. So what is it?
Which feedback counts? Is if I want to give feedback, would I need to put that in LinkedIn, or would I need to put it in queue?
So on both on Q, so if you go, the LinkedIn post tells you how to give feedback, right? And it gives you a link down here, right down here. If you click this link, you end up going to that Q page that I showed you.
So I could only give feedback when I'm a registered UN CEFACT. No. That's the only way to get into Q.
No. So your concern is very good, and therefore we already have built ways for people to give comments who aren't registered as UN CEFACT experts and who don't have an account on the UNICC GitLab environment and so the
comment that Chris Papp gave in the morning, I think he directed it to a certain email address. That is also a way of doing it.
Yes. So if you see this email address here, I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but there's a groups.io. So we've got a group email address we've been using since the beginning of this project to sort of share, because groups seem to like emails as one of the channels. So there's a group email address. So there's a way to email the group as with comments. So we'll all see if you become I think you remember the group, Hans. If you remember the group, you'll see an email from people sort of saying here's some comments. Now, at the moment, Alina and I are moderators for the group. So if someone was to send, here's my Russian dodgy website that I want you to click on, hopefully Alina and I will see that before we let the group click on it, right? So we moderate the emails that come in. But basically the idea is any valid review comment should be seen. And the processing process is to take these review comments, if they follow this path, the one you're seeing on the screen right now, they end up creating a Word document, which they then email to us. If they follow that path, or others that are not direct to issues inside the GitLab environment, then we'll create a GitLab issue. We'll kind of create an issue for them because we can't expect them to have accounts and all the other stuff. It's too much friction. So we're going to get, we got one from Chris Papp you mentioned already, that's quite well formed. I mean, it's quite, he spent some time thinking about this and he's written some stuff about it. So it's a comment. We'll see how I've decided one way to process it in a second. I'll show you. We're going to get them from that channel, so to that email address. We've also on the website got this and how the website now looks. So you see at the top there's a banner, and it says please read the review guide. And if you click that, it tells you the announcements, what we're looking for, how to submit your feedback. So you can submit via a web form. So if I click this, you get a web form and you can type in some stuff. And the web form is sensitive to the things like where you are and other things. So it's basically a simple web form you can use. And also we've got an email. If you click on the email, I'm not sure if that's going to open on mine because I use webmail, but oh, it does. You'll get a formatted email. So there's sort of 3 channels. So hopefully that will give us enough. The other direct channel is, of course, create an issue in our issue log. If you've got the kind of wherewithal to do so, and then you can do that. So that's how people create issues. The interesting thing, of course, is going to be how we will process these review comments. So UNTP has just finished their public review process on my email. This is what you click that button that I clicked. My system was very slow. It's doing too many things at once. I get a pre-formatted email that looks like this. So it's just basically got some things filled out for the email. It's got the address for the groups IO thing filled out. So clicking that button, clicking the button send feedback via email just gives you a formatted email, and you can fill it out. So we're going to get review comments in various forms. Now I've created one. I've taken Chris Papp's Word document. Here's my logic, and please, the 3 of you kind of say if there's a better way of doing this. I think it's important that if we've received a comment from somebody, that we kind of honor the comment, that we put it in as accurately as we can into the system as an issue, and we don't kind of fiddle with it in the process. We don't sort of select out a bit and just put that in as the issue. I think we need to be honest to them about what they actually said. We can then decide, well, of all the things you said, this is actually the thing that's the issue you're raising or the comment, and we can then process it. But at least we can show a kind of joined up thinking from the original issue through to how we process. So my suggestion is we kind of do what I've done here, which is a bit laborious, but I copied his email cover where he described what, in a sense, what the issues were and sort of the 5 themes. And then I've taken the Word document and I've made it into a markdown table that's in here. Now, he's got 5 issues in his issue. And what we can do, and I've done, is to create 5 tasks out of the 1 issue. And that's the sort of logic I think I'm going to follow, either that or linked items. There's a way to create a child item, so like a child issue underneath an issue. And the theory, I think, is if you solve all the child issues, then the parent issue gets solved.
I think, John, unfortunately, they're not actually the same issue.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the issue.
But that's okay, Joe. So they're not. It's not like an ontological thing, right? Other than they were raised in this blob. The blob contains completely different things inside it. But until you satisfied all the things, you haven't satisfied the blob. It's they belong to Chris Papp's submission for review. So Chris,
but every issue should be progressed either to a change or a drop.
Exactly. So what you could, we've only got Chris's to work with right now, right? But if we had a dozen, we might find that actually Chris has got a similar idea to somebody else and somebody else. And so they're solved by one merge request. And we link the fix to the issue to the change that we're making. And basically we sort of synthesize that way. But to be honor the reviewer, I think we've got to show their complete blob of review and then how we're processing it. That's what I'm thinking right now. What I want to do is ask the UNTP team how they handle it, because they've just finished their live review. They like us had 60 days of live review. They finished last week. And
do you know how many they got? How many?
They got a few hundreds. Is one way. You could say we've got 5 already, right? But they got, in a sense, hundreds. And you can see that.
That's good.
if you go to UNTP, actually, I can only do it if I go here probably. Yeah, that's it. They've got their issues. They've got 269 open issues right now, but you can filter those issues on the public review label, which is why I've created a public review label for us as well. And then you get whatever number we're going to get. We're going to get, does it tell us how many? 126 are open that have the label public review. So that's what they're working their way through. What they were doing was working through those review comments whilst the review was open as well. So that so here's another thing I value your feedbacks on. We have a choice to an extent. We could sit sort of stumm. We could not change anything and wait until we got all the review comments in, and after the 60 days, then try and process these review comments. And has a couple of effects. One is, if there's an obvious problem that someone's seen, everybody else sees the same problem, and it's maybe not easy to review because the problem obscures what should be reviewed. The other thing is, they won't get a second chance. We'll have finished the public review period, and then we'll process their review, and they'll just have to accept whatever we did to it. You know, they can't have a second bite and say, well, hang on, I don't like the way you handled my review comment. I'd like to submit something else. And so if we process during the 60 days, I think we give people a better chance to see how we've handled it, and hopefully have less issues to handle at the end of the 60 days. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's all.
Yeah, the only issue I would say is we probably need to group them by the topic, if you like.
So this and we've
is that what the labels do on the
yeah, exactly right, Joe. So there's a number of sort of grouping features you can use for issues and GitLab things in general. One is the milestone things are in. So these are all going to be in the milestone of public review. So the milestone they're in. And the other thing you can do is label them, like I've labeled them here with public review. And you can also create other labels. So we've got existing labels for other things. Where do I find the labels? Manage labels. We've got other labels already set up. So we've got labels that say this is to do with documentation, information architecture, the stages that we don't need to worry about the stages, but the part of that ODP thingy. It's a technical issue. It's a UX issue. So if we find there's a theme for some of these review comments that are sort of like important to cluster them together, we should create a label and tag with it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So whether it's a technical issue, whether it's an interoperability issue, whether it's a legislative and governance sort of problem, that exactly you can imagine that sort of being a useful segregation. And
the other thing is it helps you triage the issues. So I would be looking to and asking for kind of interested people to work on types of issue. Yeah. So it doesn't mean you have to solve it. It just means you're kind of looking at it first and sort of doing a bit of triage. So you can imagine Alina would be, I'll name you Alina. Alina will be the go-to person for legal issues, right? Sort of if there's a question about law and MLETR or whatever else, and I think Alina is the right person to ask about that. I guess I could start having a stab at technical stuff or something, but it's basically who might be best placed to have a look at these types of issues. And that's sort of where we'll do hopefully some triage where we can set up working groups is what the UNTP created. They created working groups to sort of solve types of problems. They have a conformity assessment group, for example, that look at things to do with conformity.
Well, I'm wondering, John, if the issues that we were raising are completely solved, especially the one Hans was raising about the digital identity anchor definition. And I don't know whether we agree or not fully on this concept.
Well, I think what now Hans has another opportunity to do is to see how we did handle it, and that history is in the. So we go to closed issues. You'd be able to. I don't know if we want to do it in real time.
Because I think we should first clarify the issues that we were raising.
Well, we could, but Alina, that's going to take us 10-15 minutes, and I don't know that we need to move. So I want to say.
No, I don't mean now. But
okay, cool.
Like during this phase.
Yeah, Hans has Hans, you've got an account to log in on this, haven't you? At the moment, you can get onto the site as a GitLab person and do stuff, can't you? I think.
I think
so. So you can search things. You'll find the issue you raised in this list of theoretically
what I
closed
just
it.
meant is like before starting to solve other people's issues, we should first solve ours.
Yeah, well, I think now.
I was
think
very
now-
reluctant. I could raise another 10 issues.
Well,
Go for it.
you should. Yeah, well,
Oh, you sure? You want that? No.
If you want, yeah, seriously, because okay, so this is where I want to agree with you very much, Lena and Hans. I would hope that we managed Hans's issue, but it's not for me to say, it's for Hans to say. Now we're in open public review. Hans can raise an issue again, right? He could say, well, hang on, what I was originally talking about hasn't been addressed properly. I need this to this, whatever.
Yeah.
So he can raise the issue, right?
You're talking about technology neutrality?
It's whatever, well, you have a look at how we handle your issue and then decide if it's still open or not,
right,
and raise it if you need to. So that's what I suggest, Lena, is that we do all this openly, publicly, so people can see what's been raised and how it's been handled, rather than in the background, right? I don't think doing
Yes,
things
of
in the
course,
background.
there is not this is not a secret gathering.
Yeah, quite. It needs to be seen.
It's recorded.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we've talked a bit about how you can help. What I'm hopeful for is that it's not, obviously we've got a small call number today, but there are others that have been interested and helpful in the past, and hopefully we can bring them in, even if it's offline kind of consideration. In other words, that we've asked them via email or something, can you have a look at this, and they've come back to us, and then at the meeting we discuss it. So the meeting should be confirmation of actions that have been taken, or confirmation of a decision that we've already lined up ready to go, rather than live discussion about a complicated issue, because that will take time. Sankashan had a suggestion, and he's going to be on the call tomorrow, unfortunately not today. I just got a message from him about how we might better shape documentation changes and new contributions for GRID. So he's got a kind of he's looked at the whole, I suppose, shape of the documents we have at the moment, and he's suggesting, okay, we might need to sort of give some guidance about how to contribute content and what to do with it. So this is another issue, as it's called, issue number 66. And what I think is going to be the case, and that's why I want to talk to the Sankashan, is we take that issue, which is issue number, where is 66? 66, here we go. And we convert that into a document that's available to people who look at the website, right? So we sort of say, okay, here's some guidelines. We've already got guidelines documents on the website. Here's some guidelines for contributing content. So we'll have a chat with Sankashan, but that's sort of what I think. It's not a deliverable for the project. It's not like the formal stuff from a CEFACT brief thing, but it's helpful, I hope. So that's it. That's all the bits about the public review. What I think will happen for these meetings over the next few weeks is that we'll start hopefully getting quite a few comments in, and these meetings will be reflecting how we have handled those issues, how we've triaged them, what themes we think they have, or whatever else, and maybe allocating people to have a look at them, that kind of stuff, and maybe agreeing those that we think are closed, if they're ready to close, then we close them. It will be hopefully just talking about the raised issues and how to close them. Alina and I are going to be working on the, actually, Alina, I've talked too much. You can talk about Spain and GRID and pilots.
Actually, I just recently got in touch when I attended the last UN meeting. I got in touch with the Italian mission, and they are also interested, or they would be interested to develop a pilot as well. And I'm just now looking forward a contact point from the Italian ministry. And probably beginning of September, we would be able to have a meeting with them as well. So just to make like a brief summary regarding pilots so far, as interested countries would be obviously Spain. And then we have Uzbekistan, as we had recently we had a meeting with Uzbekistan. They're highly interested in developing a pilot. And then we might have Italy, which has not been confirmed 100% for the moment. And who else, John? We would have interested Australia, I imagine.
Well, we're very much pushing on Australia. The other 3 countries in South America are from Marcus Allende, who reached out. He's seeing you or Steve Capel in Geneva in September. So that's Brazil, Uruguay, and I think it's Colombia. I'm trying to remember. I sort of remember. I think it's Colombia. So yes, and India mixed because Steve Capel met them at another conference of the UN, and they re-expressed interest. So I think the fact that review is a confidence-inspiring step. I hope, and hopefully we'll get to get more people sort of doing things.
What would you expect to happen in a pilot?
So the pilot is really has two sides to it. One is that a registrar is sufficiently interested to want to know more about what does it mean if I'm on the grid, and there's questions that are organizational, questions that are business, commercial kind of questions. There are questions that are technical about the meaning of being on the grid. Is it difficult to be on the grid? Do I have to change lots of stuff? Does it cost me lots of money? Is it, all these sort of questions. And the other thing is, does it deliver any value? And the pilot is there to sort of help people explore those questions. And what happens is when they raise problems or questions or issues with the pilot, we might improve the design of the pilot. In other words, the actual solution approach we're using for the pilot might be improved by the fact that the participants are saying, well, this is a real pain. Can we improve this step or whatever? So the pilot acknowledges, if you like, participating will improve. It'll improve the pilot itself, and it'll help the participants understand what it means to be on the grid.
Is there an activity that would continuously help national registers to become grid members and to implement the required technology?
So I think
is that what CESA is doing?
No, this is all pro bono, mate. This is all pro bono. So the idea would be this: if the UN CEFACT Bureau agrees that it's sufficiently interesting, this is after public review, and then when they have the plenary in November, then there would need to be I guess a realization that they need to set up a body, a thing to run the grid. And that
the UN. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Curate to run the grid.
Yeah, to run the grid. So, and remember, we're trying to model it on the KOPKD kind of model, where there are only 2 full-time employees of the KOPKD, and it costs hardly any money at all to be a member of the KOPKD. So it's that kind of thinking about how could you minimalistically run the grid. But yes, you're absolutely right. If the grid is to be successful, it would need to continually invite new members and support those new people coming on board. So yes, you're right. There needs to be a process where you're kind of growing grid membership. But remember, grid's ambition is very thin. It's deliberately not trying to. It doesn't take the registry data. It doesn't. There's a lot of things it doesn't do.
John, that could even become a consulting business, can it?
It could be. Well, I think
implementation support. I think you call it. Probably.
So I think
application support is a consulting business.
Yeah. So the way I think it would work, and this is purely speculation for the record, pure speculation for the record, is that the UN would employ people full time to run the grid. I think it's they might outsource it to a company to run the infrastructure. That's what the KOPKD do. They run a procurement contract every few years to say who's going to host the public keys that are given to us by governments. So there's a sort of commercial relationship to run the infrastructure. There are full-time employees of the UN that run KOPKD. And then there are opportunities created by the thing existing for other technology companies and advisory consulting. So Joe loves this idea of hub and spoke models. If the grid exists, there are lots of registrars and registers around the world that might want to join it, that would need help. It's not going to be, you're seeing the full Suzu complement on the screen right now. We're not the kind of company that's going to do global expansion and stuff. So
just provocating.
Yeah, okay.
Don't worry, I'm not thinking to that.
But you're right.
I'm just wondering, John, if UN has already agreed to hire this this stuff now that will be in charge of the grid.
I think
Considering the budget crisis
Yes,
that the current
that's
has, because
exactly
it's one of the main
the
concerns.
direction.
Like the first thing you hear when you attend the UN meeting, to begin with, like during the introduction, they would speak like half an hour about the budgetary crisis. And
that's right. So you remember
this is the main concern at the moment.
Exactly. That's what I was alluding to.
Anticipating that, the documentation includes the economic argument for self-sustaining operation. The UN must put no money into the grid. The grid must be self-sustaining, must not demand money from the UN, but it needs to run under the auspices of the UN. In other words,
is there going to be more than a little bit of governance that probably could be done by like a quarter of a person, like 2 or 3 person that spend 1 day a week in it? If
why not?
It's becoming.
I have no preconditions about how they run it efficiently. It's up to them. But the idea of being self-sustaining, I think, is essential, because you're right. There's no money in the UN, and it needs to be able to sort of stand on its own 2 feet. This thing.
And John, if there was money, in whatever 2028, it could be gone in 2029.
So it has to be.
But, I mean, as far as I know, this liquidity crisis has been going on for quite a while.
Oh yeah.
And it's not getting any better.
Yeah,
not going to get better.
Predictable. It could be bringing it all to a halt.
Until certain countries change their leaders, it's not going to change.
I was just wondering if we discussed this point with Steve as the vice chair, and what would
he'll have the same challenge. He'll have exactly the same challenge on UNTP. And that's reasonable. But the thing is, I think what you've got to realize, what we've got to realize, is that getting a registrar onto the grid is good, but the utilization of that registry as part of a pilot or whatever it is that really wants to actually use the DIAs that come out of the grid, that's where you've got to get the anchor, and that's where the financial model may have to be. It's not the registrars that actually pay; it's the actually endpoints that actually utilize those sort of things, and that whole commercial model is still yet to come.
But I think,
but it's a design question. If you design the system in a way that you rely on continuous UN commitment and money, then it's designing for failure.
Rest assured, the documentation that's been there for months now states very categorically it will not be funded by the UN, it will be self-sustaining. It also categorically describes how the business model is expected to work. You can review that and comment on it, but it's there.
I mean, the thing is, as I understand it, like if member states would have to pay a fee to join it, of course, then we would have a budget. Then we would most likely need somebody or a team to manage all this budget, obviously.
But that's another non-starter, because somebody may have the $10 it requires on a yearly basis, but they just don't read what you tell them, or they can't be approached.
It is. I mean, I love. Okay, we are all talking, I think, in a very positive way about the future operational status for the grid, which is great. Right, we're not there yet, but we need. But the all that we've said is true, right? So it needs to be self-sustaining. It needs to have a minimal operational footprint. It needs to provide value to the participants such that they're willing to pay a fee to be a member of it, and that they return more value than the cost is.
And it needs to be self-sustaining and as decentral as anyhow possible.
And it is. The design is deliberately extraordinarily decentralized and putting all authority and power back into the registrars and responsibility for accuracy of data.
And then, John, excuse me, I would consider another thing, like, as we said, the grid or the project has double perspective. On one hand, the GTR or the global register, and on the other hand, the digital identity anchor. Might be that not all the member states, obviously, have reached the digitalization level so that they are capable to issue the digital identity anchor, or might be that they don't want for the moment, or whatever.
Very, very true, Alina. And ever since the beginning of this project in April 2025, I've in my mind separated these two things out. So running the grid needs to support member states, UN member states that are not digitally mature, that don't have capability of all sorts of things, but they still want to be a member of the grid and they want to get value from it, and that needs to be true. The issuing of a DIA was sort of put on us by the UNTP because they felt this is the best place to talk about it. And I think we have found some useful things about the idea of a digital identity anchor, and I think we're still finding more. So that's a good thing. We're going to push those back into UNTP. We ourselves, the grid itself will, so the process is you accept a UN member state as a participant. If they've got no digital capability, all you've really got is a row and a table saying that this is the name of the registrar for this UN member state, and this is how you contact them. It might be a street address in a country and a phone number. It could be as simple as that. It might be a website. If they're a bit more mature, it might be whatever. But basically, we're not expecting them to manage keys and issue DIDs and do all the other things. If they can issue a DID, then the grid can issue a DIA about that registrar. So the grid itself could issue a digital identity anchor saying, we recognize this registrar. The reason that's useful is that the UNTP protocol has this discover, resolve, verify process that lets you traverse a transparency graph. And if it ends up with a registrar that's in the grid through a DIA that we've created, then there's a sort of a truth point, if you like, that in fact was the registrar that's recognized by the grid. But that can be independent of the registrar themselves issuing DIAs. We just issue a DIA. They don't have to do anything at that point. They have to create a DID, and we issue a DIA. All of that's in the design document, believe it or not. So there's that's why, for example, with the pilot for Spain, we'll have steps we'll go through, Alina, of kind of getting Spain on board, which will be very simple to start with.
Obviously, Spain would be interested in both stages to participate in the grid. And
you can go all the way, as you did in the
we can
World
go all in. And issuing the DIA, actually, the main concern, as I mentioned a few times, that we have is to harmonize properly this project with the European initiatives, with the wallets, and we build consortium. So obviously, we would go for both to fulfill both stages, but we have to see how to properly harmonize.
You're going to be you can be a brilliant pilot for all those reasons. I think it's a great place to start. So I'm on I'm on bullet point number 3. Actually, no, we've already talked about 4. I've got that twice. I'm gonna get rid of that. So in real time, I'm going to edit my agenda. There you go. That's why it had too many things in it. So I want to point to a conversation that happened that Steve Capel has been involved in, and he pulled Sankashan in, and he's pulled me into. So there is an initiative under W3C. So we're using standards for our work on UNTP that are from the W3C. The verifiable credential data model is a W3C standard, and we're also using DIDs, decentralized identifiers. There's a working group working on recognized entities. I don't know if Hans, have you come across this already?
Sorry, I was just distorted.
W3C's working group on recognized entities. Have you come across that before? It's okay if you haven't, by the way. It's not a like test.
No, I haven't.
May not. But what Steve Capel's become interested in, and Joe and I will recognize a few names on here, like Reeks Houston, who I thought had retired.
Doesn't mean they stopped working.
No. So they're
getting paid.
They're looking at, just like the rest of us. He's looking at a whole bunch of looks at a whole bunch of things, which is sort of, and they want to pull in. They've got a pull request for including an appendix on. I can't see it in here now because I'm not looking at the model. For including an appendix that describes the use case of grid. So in this W3C standard, they want to talk about grid. Now, the way they want to use grid is subtly different to the way the grid's been written about. So we need to work with Manu Sporny, actually, is the guy we're working with, Joe, aligning understandings, maybe changing their understanding or changing ours, whatever. I don't know which way it's going to go. But anyway, that's a piece of work. It sounds terrible. It's an area of work that we're looking at how we might kind of make a better fist out of it. So that's only started this week. That popped up. What's happened already, I think, is that if we go to our issues list, is that the right one? Is that UNTP? It's grid. Okay, grid issues. In the grid issues list, I believe, yes, there you go. That Sagashan has already created an issue to describe this opportunity, and this is the pull request. And in the pull request is the actual sort of proposed appendix that they would put to the end of their standard. So that's live action. You're very welcome to jump in on it. You'll see it in the issues list for our projects. And the last thing on my list is a piece of work I've been doing with the National Association of Testing Authorities. So I've learned a lot about things I like learning about things I don't know. It's the only thing to learn really about things you don't know. So there are national bodies for every country that are the recognized body to test what are called conformity assessment bodies. So if you have a lab in Spain that tests sunscreen, the lab needs to run according to an ISO 17025, I think it is standard, and a bunch of other things. And somebody needs to accredit the lab to being capable of running to that standard. And that's the national accreditation body for Spain, generally. Don't know what the name of that one is, but for Australia, the national accreditation body is NATA.
You spoke to Brett Highland too much recently?
I've been working with Brett Highland a lot.
Yeah.
And yes, exactly. And so I've learned about a whole bunch of things. Now, what's interesting about these accreditations is they have and he's written white papers that are on the UN CEFACT business requirement specification lists about accreditation state diagram changes. So accreditation can be kind of active, it could be withdrawn, it could be suspended, and it has these sort of states. And what I've realized, and I think Brett's now also realizing, is we need to think about history. So this is going to come back to grid. In grid, we've spent a lot of time thinking about how somebody becomes eligible to be on the grid, what the criteria are. What if temporarily a UN member state says, look, we're not actually active at the moment, we can't comply, we're not doing whatever. What do we do with the entry that they've got? Do we, I don't know, suspend it? What do we do? We've got to think about sort of the off ramps, if you like, and perhaps the back on ramp things for states changes. Now, I've had to think about those with Brett for things that are much more obvious. So I'll quickly, hopefully in 1 minute, I'll explain a use case we're working on. And the use case is when you build an office block. So if you're building an office block and you want to claim that it's a green office block, you want to build it with green materials and make it to a sort of 5 or 6 star eco kind of measurement thing. And that's great. So you in our accreditation world, you buy steel from a manufacturer that claims it's green steel. It's been tested by a lab that's accredited to test green steel, and that lab is authorized or accredited by a national association like NATA. All good, fantastic. We can imagine how that works with UNTP credentials. But what we now need to do is wind the clock forward 15 years when a building inspector re-inspects the building and says, is this building a green building? And they want to look at the records for the building, and there may be paper, or there may be whatever, or maybe there's some missing or something. So they want to look back and say, 15 years ago, when this building was commissioned and when the steel was delivered, was it green steel, tested by a lab that was accredited to test the steel and authorized under a national body? Now, the story in our complicated world is that lab ceased to be a lab 5 years ago, say. Okay, so their accreditation is no longer current. So now you need to be able to go back and say, 15 years ago, was the accreditation valid? And that sort of history thing isn't what they typically display on their websites right now. And the idea of dipping in and out of accreditation, suspended and then back in again. What period were you suspended for? Did you issue any conformity assessments while you were suspended? Because that's a no-no. There's all sorts of interesting wrinkles around history. And I don't think we've really talked about status over time much, but it's going to come to us. And I've got a working document draft that I've been working on for a bit about how to use the what's called the bitstring status list, but also using other factors, because the bitstring status list is just a now answer. It's not a in the past answer. So you need something else.
Well, maybe you need a good technology that allows you historization.
Yeah, yes. People immediately want to go blockchain, right?
No, of course not.
Okay, good. But I've tried to write this in, as you would say, Hans, technology neutral terms about what outcome you need as opposed to what the inputs are. And so the outcome is the ability to answer a question, if you like, a sort of exploratory query. I'll share a link to that for those that are interested about status over lifetime thinking. And if you've already come across ways to solve that, I'll be delighted to be pointed to other bodies of work. Yeah,
that's gonna be a longer discussion.
Yeah, not today.
It's about writing a graph.
Yeah.
Easily writing a graph easily, and you need VCs that you can link endlessly, and as you please, and not be limited by some technologies that are actually outdated. But that's a long discussion. Take 2 hours, and I'll get you through it.
One of the interesting things that I didn't realize is that the identity resolver, as defined inside UNTP, has it's almost like a side effect of being able to explore the history of things, which I didn't realize was part of its remit, but it has that capability. But it only has that capability if the history of things has been written. In other words, if the process by which credentials are managed leaves a historical trace behind it, such that you can find things. You know, if you're not writing history, no one can read it.
What do you need to do that? What do you need? You need to be able to link anything to the graph.
You're right. It's a long conversation of quite interesting parts. So I think my suggestion is let me share links in. Do you see the group emails, Hans, or Slack? What's the best way to reach out for you?
I'm not on Slack. I ignore Slack. Slack deletes everything that's older than 90 days for me. Unless I go and pay for it. I read these mails, these group IO mails.
Okay, cool. Well, in the group, I'll create a thread in the group, because I do generally think it's worth people interested and all of our experience sharing.
I would also suggest it's outside of the weekly discussion process.
Probably, Joe, you're right.
That would just take too much time.
It's going to be, I think it's going to be an issue.
Yeah.
That I raised, because I don't think at the moment, Alina, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we have a kind of impact on the data that we manage thing about someone comes in and out of eligibility and things. You know, you've got some stuff around the governance process that you've written around considerations and stuff, haven't you? But what we do with the data is the thing that's interesting me.
You mean the eligibility requirements?
Yeah, you wrote lots of good stuff around the operating model.
Yes.
And how the process of decision making and all sorts of stuff. But what's interesting is I don't think we've done a design that says the data is now set to this value.
Or how to go backwards into that.
And how to go backwards.
Yeah.
And stuff. So I think
on one hand, there is also the UN body we were referring to, which is not clear enough, in my opinion. And we should also clarify that point. At the end, who is going to be the UN body we were referring to?
Strangely, for technologists, we can handle the fact that the UN body isn't defined yet. That's just like a label on a graph. That's fine. We get rid of what's the data setting for the. There are things we can be happy with, but you would figure, well, hang on, who is this?
I think there are many issues in the air, and we should address all of them at the end.
Yeah. But we can't decide who the UN body is. That's the UN to decide.
No, this is not on us.
Yeah. So that's.
Let me ask another question, please. When did this project here start, and when did the UN VTD project start? Do you know that?
This project was April 2025. UN VTD would be a little later, but not a lot later. It would have been, I think, the first half of 25, I think.
That's enough. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
By the way, I just got a text message from the Italian mission that they say that they will double check with Mr. Giovanni Melardi from the Agency for Digital Innovation in Rome regarding the pilot, and they will get back to us as soon as possible.
Oh, one last thing, if it's okay, quickly, is this is risky. I'll do it on another screen. I've been building a few explainers because people keep saying explain yourself, John, and there's a couple that might be interesting. One was out of the work we were doing with NATA and Global ACI. So I need to find now my playlists. I put them into our playlist for this project. So this one here. Reasonably comfortable that that's going to be the right thing. Oh, come on. Honestly. Okay, so this was a if I jump, leave it update. Yeah, well, this was basically to try and explain to Global ACI and NATA how the sort of linked data, cryptographically signed and linked data, is a far more secure proposition than just putting data out on a database, on a repository or a website. And so this is pretty well technology agnostic, right? I'm just saying signed blocks of data with links in it. Yeah, I'm not really too worried about the details of them. But anyway, this is like a 6-minute little video. So there's that, and there's some other explainers that are in there. You've seen one of the ones, I think, that one of the ones, Alina, that was the animation. There's an autoplay function I must have set somewhere that's really annoying. There's this thing here, which is a cinematic display. Isn't AI magic? And then there's this one. All of these sort of 5-minute, 2-minute videos are all about a quick explain. So they're all in the playlist. Go your hardest, have a look at them. So I think I just shared the playlist to people, I think, on the chat. Did I do that on the chat?
Hang on.
I didn't.
Hang on. Where's the chat?
Let me go to the playlists. Go to that playlist again, and I'll have to stop it when it starts. It starts immediately. Just so annoying. Stopped you, bastard. Thank you. So I think if you go to here, that should take you to the. I think that will take you to the playlist. Does anybody want to be brave enough to click it?
Clicked it.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it's risky, isn't it, Joe? The World Cup could be cycling. The most likely thing is it's some cycling thing I'll be watching. But actually, I don't watch videos.
I know it comes through. It comes through.
Okay, cool. All right. So that will, on the right hand side, you'll see all the sort of, there are 50. Most of them are about the meetings we've had, right? But there are more recently some explainers and stuff that I'm putting in for the project. So if you need to share something with somebody, Alina, if you want to share any of those video links, then you can do that.
Could you please forward me the link to this YouTube channel?
It's in the chat.
Yeah, do you want it on the WhatsApp?
Yes.
Okay, I'll do it on there. Yeah, okay.
It's in the link.
It's in the chat now, but I'll put it also on a WhatsApp link with Alina. Okay,
Are
that was it.
All our meetings?
Yeah.
50, I can see there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, usually 2 weeks.
I'm impressed.
Two every. Well, it's not. It's two. It's one a week, but we don't have them every week. Yeah. So yeah, it's 50 recordings. We didn't start recording at the beginning. There's more than enough to deep fake me for perpetuity. Anyway, that's it. I don't have anything else. Any great to see you all again, and I think we're hopefully in for an exciting few weeks.
These are great, these videos, John. Be busy.
I tell you, if you watch
You're
them
famous, you're famous, John.
you watch them more than twice, the music really starts driving you nuts.
It's not as bad as on hold to one of the banks I'm at.
Maybe
trying
not.
to, yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Okie dokies.
Excellent, great job. Well done.
Well done, guys.
Guys, bye bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye bye. Have a nice day.
Yeah, bye-bye.
See you guys. Bye.